Delta Pro Ultra just got a massive upgrade. Last week, we got our hands on the brand new Delta Pro Ultra X, offering higher solar capacity and whole house backup. In today's video, we're going to do a full hands-on review and teaching you all about the new platform.
The smarter way to go solar.
Okay, so today we're back at Dan's house here in Central Virginia. We've just upgraded to the new Delta Pro Ultra X. Dan, like we talked about last year, and we've been talking about a lot this year, I think a lot more people are going to choose to go solar in what I call the self-directed manner.
Yeah.
Where you can basically buy solar equipment directly from a manufacturer like EcoFlow. Then you as the homeowner can put together most of the major components yourself and then bring in help from a roofer or electrician to help with other parts of the install where they may be needed. But basically where the homeowner becomes the project manager and they can save thousands of dollars by providing all that equipment and doing some of the installation themselves.
Exactly. I mean, we've no stranger to the channel and those that have watched over the past 18, 24 months. The industry's been very solar coaster. But a big need, obviously, today with net metering changes and a lot of things happening is for battery systems. In EcoFlow, amongst a handful of others, but EcoFlow really leading the way in the direct-to-consumer kind of DIY, making use of professionals when needed, like we've done with the newer Smart Home Panel 3 behind us here too, and a master electrician. But yeah, great system, and I think the way that a lot of people are going to go.
Yep. So last year we installed the Delta Pro Ultra with the Smart Home Panel 2.
Yeah.
And so for this year's upgrade, basically we've upgraded to the new Delta Pro Ultra X and the new Smart Home Panel 3. You can just see, first glance, the Smart Home Panel 3 is much larger, and essentially it's designed to entirely replace a full 200 amp electrical panel. You got up to 32 smart controlled circuits in there.
Exactly, yeah.
We've also expanded on the battery capacity. So last year we only had 2 of the 6 kilowatt hour modules for a total of 12 kilowatt hours. Now we've got a full 24 kilowatt hours of storage hooked up to the inverter.
Yep, all in a single stack here. And we technically have room to go one more battery taller, up to 30 kilowatt hours in one single stack with one Delta Pro Ultra X inverter as well. And the DPU-X has gotten a major performance facelift versus the predecessor too. So this is now up to 12,000 watts of output versus the previous 7,000 watts. A little bit has changed on some of the front face here as far as the inputs. We've only got 2 120 volt outlets here, where the previous one had 4. But I think what they realize is most people aren't using it for plug-in purposes. This is just kind of if you needed it, you could do it here.
Right. I mean, I think where you get your real power out of this is where you have your full 240 volt, 30 amp or 50 amp outputs. So these are the same type of outputs you'd find on a standby generator. And if you don't want to install the full Smart Home Panel 3, you can actually interface directly in through a generator inlet, just like you would use a standby generator. In fact, that's how you're going to be able to get the most surge power out of the unit, is connecting to these 240 volt terminals here.
Yeah, there's no throttling or anything of that kind when you go straight into this. And if you want, go back and watch our previous video on the old Delta Pro Ultra. Again, we did a system here at my house exactly that way, did a load test exactly that way. You're just going to get more power out of the new DPU-X than the previous one, but you'll get the idea of exactly how you could have that installed if you didn't want to interface it with the Smart Home Panel 3 or Smart Home Panel 2.
Right. But as you said, 12 kilowatt hours continuous output. You can also get 12 kilowatts, up to 12 kilowatts continuous input if you want to recharge the unit using a fuel burning generator. Those of you who've been following the channel for a while, you know that one of the things I recommend if you're truly preparing for an off-grid operation or surviving a prolonged power outage, it's good to have that option to be able to hook up a fuel burning generator. So that way, if you hit a patch of bad weather, let's say your batteries are draining down and there's no sun to recharge the batteries, well, you can fire up the generator, and in less than 2 hours, you can bring your batteries from 0 up to, assuming you have 2 battery packs, you can bring your batteries from 0 up to 80% state of charge in less than 2 hours. So you're stretching your fuel supply. You're not having to run the generator overnight, but it just gives you another way that you can keep those batteries topped up in a prolonged outage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so as far as the basic functions of the unit, obviously the main one is going to be whole house solar and battery backup. Now the new DPU-X can take up to 10 kilowatts of solar input, so that's nearly double compared to the previous version. up to 10 kilowatts of solar input. And since you can wire it now for whole house backup, you essentially can self-consume all of that solar as well. So you're using the battery for backup purposes, but many of you may choose to use this for self-consumption purposes as well, so that as much of the solar energy as you generate, you're consuming it and you're only pulling from the power company as needed as a last resort option only.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of really creative design with the mobile app as well, and the ability to program these different use cases as well. They have an AI mode, which is kind of just a learning mode, right? It learns based on your utility plan, based on your energy usage, your time of use, and battery state of charge, how it's going to use the battery. So it could kind of toggle between a backup system, between a self-consumption system. Obviously, you can go right to a self-consumption mode as well, or what they, I believe, are calling self-powered. But that's just really where, hey, as you're producing your solar power, run it through the battery and right into the home, effectively avoiding the grid altogether. And then, of course, you'll go over to the grid if and when is needed, or if there's not enough adequate power coming in.
Yeah, but that's one of the other trends we've been seeing in the past couple of years is the one-for-one net metering programs are going away.
Yeah.
So whereas a lot of folks maybe 5 years ago would just be installing straight solar and inverters and just tying into the grid, dumping the excess to the grid, now I think the more common installation is going to be solar with battery storage, and then using that battery so that you can get the best return on investment. Either that means consuming as much energy yourself, or based on the hour of the day, because a lot of these utilities have different rate plans to where there's on-peak hours, off-peak, super off-peak, to where it might be profitable to use the batteries during peak hours only, but then pull from the utility during super off-peak where it might be cheap power overnight.
Yeah, and for that matter too, I mean, a battery in a system like this, like we don't have any solar tied into this system exactly as it is right now. Now, for me here in Central Virginia, I'm fortunate that my utility plan is not time of use based and it's pretty reasonable for rates. So I would really use this as a backup source. But I think about a lot of homeowners in California that might do a similar setup, even if there wasn't solar tied in, that are just simply using this for grid arbitrage, right? In other words, you can program this to power into charge via the grid during those low energy cost times, and then feed power out of the battery system during the peak times as well. So that's even without solar tied into it, just purely grid arbitraging. There's going to be a huge economic benefit just doing it that way. Obviously tie in solar and other things and you can have even more benefit, but there's a cost to the solar as well. So you got to kind of weigh those things out. But a grid arbitrage configuration for homeowners that have really aggressive time of use plans and shifts and stuff during the day, this could be a huge, huge benefit financially.
Yeah. Well, it's cool to see all the different capabilities and how this technology's evolved. But all right, let's talk through the specific configuration that we have here at your house.
Yeah.
So I know that you have a larger home, so you've got a 400 amp service. Basically, you've got two separate 200 amp panels.
Correct.
So the way that we went ahead and installed the system here is we basically moved the circuits from the primary panel, the left panel here, and moved them into the Smart Home Panel 3.
Yep.
So the Smart Home Panel 3, again, it's a full 200 amp panel. You have 32 individual spaces. Every one of those is software monitored and controlled. So you can remotely control it from the app. You can monitor in real time how much energy is being consumed by each circuit. And you can even program circuit priorities, right? Like for backup mode.
Exactly. Yeah, here, let me actually grab my phone. Let's take a look at that. Okay, cool. So I've got the EcoFlow app here. So before we get into circuit priorities, just real quick overview of this. Obviously, main homepage here, we see what's going on with the grid usage currently, consumption. If there was solar coming into this, we obviously see the solar generation. We can see some battery specs. All these tiles are customizable. You can move them around. The thing that I find to be really cool about this, again, with the Smart Home Panel 3, given that it's a full 200 amp panel, I mean, this is rivaling panels like SPAN and some other just intelligent panels that are out there where I can now go in and I can look at my loads. So the first thing that we're seeing right now, just from top to bottom, is highest energy draw downward. Or if I want to look at this in more of like a breaker layout, I can look at it this way. So I can go through, and if you're kind of envisioning, and we'll show some content here as well, but if we open up the panel, this is exactly how my panel is laid out.
That's exactly how it's laid out. Okay.
Yeah, so I can go in here and I can see, okay, what is my, kitchen lights and Wi-Fi? What is that using right now? So right now we're pulling about 245 watts of power. I can see how much usage I've had today, 944 watt hours, right? So I'm not even at a kilowatt hour yet. So this is really cool just to get intelligent information on the loads. I could also go in and say, okay, hey, for my master bedroom, how much usage today. Okay, this is what's been happening from midnight to now. But if I want to get understanding from yesterday or the week at a glance, here's what that breaker is using. So this is also going to help me identify maybe where I'm not using energy great or where I'm using too much. I need to be a little more mindful.
Yeah, and that's important too, because a lot of times when we do an energy audit, we talk about phantom loads. And phantom loads are basically things that are plugged in that are drawing power, even though you may not be actively using it. So, for example, could be a video game console that maybe you leave it plugged in on all the time, but you're not actually there playing the game. Well, that thing's probably still drawing 200, 300 watts to keep that computer running.
Just idling. Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about this circuit level monitoring is it allows you to see where your energy is going in real time and historically, so that you can make more intelligent decisions about what you choose to consume.
Exactly. And I think one thing that's important on that same note though too is even when you're operating in a backup mode. So I highly recommend this a lot of times. Just because you're operating in backup or when the grid is down doesn't mean that you're living your life exactly the same way you would be when the grid is actually functioning. The phantom load is a great example of that because unfortunately our appliances, our Xboxes or whatever are not intelligent enough to know where they're getting their power. Oh, is this battery or is this grid? They think it's all the same. And so what I recommend though still is when you go into an emergency outage, you might still want to have a little bit of manual involvement in either unplugging things from the wall or even coming in here and killing a breaker or manually flipping off a breaker. So well,
let's take a look at that. So what can you do here as far as direct control? And then I want to take a look at that circuit priority because I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
In backup mode, if you're running on battery power only, you may want to power down certain high draw non-essential items to stretch your running time for the most essential.
Exactly. So for example, if I wanted to control one of these, let's take my bonus room right now. There's no one in the bonus room. It's consuming 45 watts. Simple as just hitting the power button, powering it off. You probably can't hear it here, but we heard the relay inside turn off. So that breaker, although the breaker is on physically, it's off because of the Wi-Fi control. So if I actually were to scroll down here to the bottom, we now can see that bonus room is turned off.
Right.
And these are all my other empty slots that I'm not currently using within the panel. Want to turn it back on, just that easy. Bam, it's back on. And then we'll see here in a second, it's back under watt. So there are under load. So there's a couple things up there. There's some lights, again, entertainment, system, things of that sort. But the bigger thing that you were talking about just a second ago, Joe, is actually getting into your priorities. So if I go over here and I hit the settings icon and I go to my backup power settings, handful of things I can see here. Storm Guard, I leave that turned on. It looks for local weather patterns to anticipate battery usage and or an outage, so it'll actually top the battery up to 100%. Currently, I cap it at 90% state of charge. EPS is just the instantaneous power, kind of functioning like a UPS. But the circuit priorities, this is the big one. So right now I have everything here listed as must-have, but you also have the nice-to-haves and you have the non-priority. The first one that comes to mind for me, Joe, is something like an air conditioning unit, right? Like maybe I don't need my air conditioning to turn on right away. I want to have the ability to turn it on, but I don't need it right away.
So by default, everything is going to be automatic battery backed up.
Exactly.
Right? Everything is in this must-have category.
By default.
So let's say, okay, but you mentioned the air conditioners. That's one of those high draw items that maybe we don't necessarily want that draining the battery all day long, so we can stretch it. So if we move that to let's say a non-priority circuit.
Yep. So now if I go over here, it's in my non-priority. We can see here these circuits won't be backed up by the batteries during a grid outage.
So okay, so then if we go into a backup mode, then the smart home panel should automatically drop that.
Correct.
Drop that load out for you.
Yep. And then I could also do something like I don't know. Let's say we did the hot water heater as an example. Okay. This maybe is a nice-to-have circuit. And in the nice-to-have category, I can choose, okay, well, at what state of charge threshold are we going to shed off that load? So if the battery is at, let's say I put this up to 80%, meaning that when the battery is above 80%, it's going to power this load. But as soon as we hit 80% or lower, it's going to shed off this load.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave that at 80%. And I can program that number, as you see here, depending on what level I want it to be. Maybe it's better to be at 50% for that, actually.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Now you have a gas water heater. It's good to know, Theon. You have a gas water heater, so it's not going to be a huge draw, but many of you have electric appliances. So your electric water heater is going to be one of those high draw items. You may not want to run that, if the battery falls below, let's say 80%. Because I could see you wanted, let's say if it's daytime and you have solar power coming in, well, go ahead, leave all the loads on. But once the sun goes down, you start drawing into that battery. you may not want to be running the heating element in your water heater overnight.
Exactly. And that's a case, or there's also the case where, let's say you live in a more tropical environment. I think of Florida as an example, very hurricane prone.
Mhm.
You know, Floridians are not strangers to backup power sources, right? It's almost a requirement for a
Oh,
lot
yes,
of them,
yeah.
right? And so this is a case where, all right, hey, a hurricane's coming through, we lose power. I don't know how long the grid might be down for. Even if the storm clears and it's beautiful and sunny the next day, the damages could be sufficient enough that my grid's not going to be functioning for an extended period of time. So you know what? To prepare for that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a handful of these loads that I can live without for a period, knowing that I can obviously come back in here and move them around and turn them on manually if I need to. So that's just another way to prepare. But let's say
Okay.
went ahead and did this. I'm just going to save that as is. And so now I've saved that. You know, that's really all there was to it. A couple other things I can see here right now. I can see that my battery currently is an 88%, state of charge. It's not using any wattage. It's got 12 days worth of storage out of this 24 kilowatt hours of juice. But again, I think what we really want to figure out is, well, if we simulate an outage, what happens, right? This is going to go under some load. It's going to, prioritize the things that we just, specified in the circuits. So if we want to do that, we can test it.
Let's go ahead and kill the main breaker here, and let's see how the unit responds. I saw the lights flicker there for a split second.
Yeah, it is super fast flicker. That was part of that EPS mode that we're in. So it's a 20 millisecond transfer. So for most things, it's fast enough that a flicker is the worst thing we're going to experience.
Okay, so basically it's like uninterruptible power supply.
Yep.
Right, so you shouldn't even have to reset your clocks or anything. I can see that there's load registering now on the inverter. So there's about 680 watts or so of load, and the battery's at 88% charge here.
Yep, and we can see that in the mobile app right now too. So we're seeing 678 watts, 88%. The home is pulling all 678, so that's effectively just flowing right through, which is to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
Under the current load, we've got a day and 5 hours of energy storage available to us. So plenty enough time, hopefully, to get through whatever the immediate emergency is. Again, with solar power, whether that was solar panels feeding directly into this, or even with the deployable portable solar panel that I actually have here too from EcoFlow, 400 watt panel. I could plug that in here and at least get a little bit of a trickle charge back, as well as generator like we talked about previously.
Yeah, but again, up to 10 kilowatts of solar input with the new unit here. So for most homes in places like California, that's going to be enough to power your entire home usage.
Yep.
And again, you can do a lot of that installation yourself. Now, we did hire a master electrician to help us wire in the Smart Home Panel 3, but you could potentially use ground-mounted solar panels, like you mentioned, or maybe get the help of a roofer or qualified solar professional to do roof mount panels up to 10 kW into the unit here.
Exactly.
All right, another feature of the system here is the Smart Inlet Box. So you'll notice here underneath the Smart Home Panel 3, we have the Smart Inlet Box. And what this does is allows us to parallel connect multiple inverter units. So for most homes, a single inverter and a single battery stack will be enough for whole house backup. But if you're looking for even more power, you can go up to 24 kilowatts continuous power with 2 inverters, or up to 36 kilowatts continuous output with 3 inverters. And so the Smart Inlet Box facilitates that parallel connection cleanly right here. All right, so this is the new Delta Pro Ultra X, the higher output, higher capacity inverter. We've got the Smart Home Panel 3 as well as the Smart Inlet Box. And basically now, Dan, we've got a direct-to-consumer out-of-the-box solution for whole house solar and battery backup.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about just performance and specs on paper, the storage here, LFP battery chemistry, I mean, this type of system, direct-to-consumer, really rivals a lot of the leading brands that are more professionally installed, while making use of limited professional installation as needed. I mean, you and I have put this system together. I think the heaviest component, each battery, is about 100 pounds, maybe a little over, but not overly difficult for, I mean, I've set this up before and disassembled it
less than 10 minutes
by myself.
Yeah, we can do the whole thing, this stack in less than 10 minutes, and then, less than a one-day job for the electrician to wire in the smart panel. So I do think you're going to see a lot more homeowners choose to go this route just because there's tremendous value, tremendous value in this
Absolutely.
approach. By the way, folks, depending on when you see this video, the official launch date for Delta Pro Ultra X is October 13th, 2025. So make sure you check the links in the description below if there's any discount codes available. Of course, we want to share all that with you. make sure that you're getting the best value from your solar and storage installation. Well, that pretty much does it for today's video. I thank you all for spending some more time on the Solar Surge channel. And as always, I'm Joe Ordia here, encouraging you to get prepared and be empowered. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.